So the basic thrust of the movie is it follows this large group of battle droids that after the Clone Wars, they escaped to like the Outer Rim. Maybe they're just some undiscovered planet, some hidden planet. Um, like they realized the writing on the wall. The separatist leadership was dead. And maybe somebody came along and kind of changed their code or gave them the orders. They're like, hey, we're losing, just flee. Because most of the droids after were either um, shot down, deactivated. So anyway, so it follows this group of droids and how they kind of deal with the aftermath of what had happened and kind of, a lot of those existential questions. So are they responsible for what they did? Um, are they, should they, you know, produce weapons still? Like, should they reproduce? Should they build factories to make more of themselves? And if they do, should they make peaceful versions of themselves? Uh, but yeah, I mean, it could deal with like a lot of those kind of questions as they kind of struggle with no more biological beings kind of oversight. Now they're in control of their own fate. So what do they do, and how do they hash out these ideas about what they should be doing? Um, and then, so while all that is going on, um, you know, it turns out that the planet they find was not devoid of life. And so while they're kind of trying to figure out where do they go next, what do they do next, what is their place, and what do they want their place to be in? And there's all this discussion amongst, and some are battle droids, so sometimes they fight. Well, they're all battle droids, but so sometimes they can have action fighting. But for the most part, it's like really dealing with these kind of deeper issues. Um, and I think, again, Guillermo del Toro is I think, the perfect director for that, to deal with those issues. Not only to deal with those issues, but to deal with the other aspect of the movie, the other life on this planet, which, as it turns out, is like a Lovecraftian cosmic horror. Um, and so, how does this being, um, that drives consciously aware people insane, like what kind of effect does it have on robots? Is it the same? Do they does their programming, does their coding start messing up? Can it possess them? Can it take over their minds? Does it drive them insane? Do they start acting weird? Do they understand what is going on? And like, how do they um, figure out, or do they even ever, whatever, there's lots of potential to build there, um, and Guillermo with the types of movies he's done and the types of things he's very clearly expressed interest in, like um, in the Mountains of Madness, which I think it is probably one of the biggest shames in cinema, that nobody has ever just dumped a pile of money at Guillermo's feet to make In the Mountains of Madness. Like, come on, what the really? Um, but yeah, so that's kind of my first kind of thing I would love to see with Disney. And most of my Disney Star Wars ideas, I don't know if Disney would ever. They've started to kind of go gritty. They've kind of seen how, as long as they don't have to go gory gritty, you know, but they can deal with deeper topics and even kind of scarier topics. And or monsters and stuff. I think they can make more adult oriented content without um, making it so adult that it doesn't fit with the Star Wars universe. Um, but it should be, I think, if anybody could pull it off again, it's Guillermo. And having this, expansion of the Star Wars universe, and that's really what I want. So in all my, ideas for movies that Disney should make, which there's a wide variety, some more thought out than others, but the main thrust of it is I want to see them develop the universe. I mean, not just focus on the characters, because there was not really a need for a Han Solo movie. And I love Han Solo, and I think the guy they had playing Han Solo, can't remember his name off my head, should have wrote that down, but he's awesome. No problem with him. It's just it was so unnecessary. There's almost no way they could have made something. I mean, maybe they could have made something better. I just don't see. You know, it didn't really expand the main character of the Star Wars universe, which is the universe. I mean, even you look through all the movies, there's not really a central character. They're mostly ensemble casts, uh, and that's one of the beauties of it. You get all these different great characters, but the central character, that really they should be fleshing out with every movie, especially every movie that's not tied into that main story arc, wherever they decide to go with that. It should really be about, let's flesh out this universe. That way, when they make main story arc stuff, that the universe is much fuller and much more alive, and it'd be much easier for the writers and directors and cast to kind of breathe life into this, the movie they're making, because a lot of the heavy lifting would already be done by these other. I mean, it already has been done in a lot of ways, but I mean, that's one of the things that really, I think, other than, well, none of them have really, um, since Disney has taken over, really expanded the universe and made it, given us aspects that we wouldn't have seen before, in ways we hadn't seen before. I mean, other than getting a little grittier, um, they've introduced some good characters, but overall, that's one of the biggest, I think, the biggest ways they've dropped the ball is they've completely, from the beginning, lost sight of the fact that they have this massive universe with this massive lore they can draw from, or just create within, because there's the huge foundations already been laid by the 6 movies George Lucas did, that they can pull from, and the more they expand on that, the more they make the universe, a central figure of the movies, and just exploring this universe and these, you know, I think that's really what has been missing. I mean, even when you look at the new movies, they're very exciting. They have great characters, perfect casting. I'm not going to mention the plot at the moment, but you know, there is no effort to really draw anything new, expand on anything new, or even really expand on what was there. They didn't really. We got a little bit more about a little bit about Han and Luke and Leia and what happened to them after, um, they blew up the Death Star again and had the collapse of the Empire. But I I mean, not really. They kind of breeze over. So um, they didn't really add to the lore at all. And then, but when you look at what is, like the Mandalorian, they're on all these different planets. They're meeting these different alien lives. They're and aliens that are living in different ways, and you have groups of people living in different ways, and they're exploring that. They're the and many of them, the world they're on is a character in the show. Like each world, each place they go to, um, has a very definite feel and is really solidly well thought out and well built. So when they go there, you know, that's one of the best things. Of course, the acting, the writing is great, all that, but that's, I think, what lifts it so far above everything else Disney has done, really. That, and, again, they're willing to take on these grittier ideas and not, they're showing that, hey, we can do this. We can make a adult oriented Star Wars that isn't, bad for kids to see. I mean, you could still um, show your kids. I mean, maybe you wouldn't want to show them a cosmic horror. Uh, but, I'm sure there's even ways to do that anyway. So, that's my first idea, though, would be, Guillermo del Toro. And, it almost has to be. There's other great directors out there with a lot of potential to do something really cool with that. But Guillermo del Toro doing a movie about droids, trying to figure out, these ex-soldier battle droids, trying to figure out their place in a universe that no longer wants them, that wants them exterminated. Um, and as they do this, and then in the background, you have this slowly building kind of Lovecraftian cosmic horror theme, just slowly moving more and more to the forefront of the movie. Um, yeah, I just think it'd be awesome. Anyway, that's my thoughts.